日前，美国前国务卿基辛格对《经济学人》表示，中美关系正处在一战前的典型局面，双方在政治上没有太多让步的余地。对于这一观点，沙利文表示不同意。
We're sort of stumbling our way into something that could turn into a very serious conflict. Do you agree?
I sat in the room with President Biden when he met with President Xi in Bali last year, and that was not my experience. I saw two leaders who are actually trying to reach understanding, even if we have different points of view and even if we are in a deeply competitive relationship, on some of the fundamentals in this dynamic, and the desire on both parts to put a floor under the relationship, to manage the competition responsibly, to ensure that competition does not become conflict. And there are a number of different elements to that, but one of the key ones is that as we have intense competition, we also have intense diplomacy, and we believe there is nothing inevitable about some kind of conflict or Cold War between the U.S. and China.
沙利文还用近期惯用的去风险来模糊先前美方声称的脱钩断链，但中方早已声明，所谓去风险是去机遇，本质上仍是小圈子政治的冷战思维。
We are for de-risking, not for decoupling. We are not looking to decouple our economy from China. We are not looking to end trade between the United States and China. But we are looking to de-risk. What does that mean? It means three things. First, it means that we need secure, resilient supply chains in critical goods like clean energy technologies and semiconductors so that we're not reliant on any one country. Second, it means that we need to protect our most advanced technologies, especially those with military applications, so those technologies cannot be used to harm our security. And third, it means that we need to fundamentally invest in the sources of our own industrial capacity here at home.
沙利文还提及台湾问题，再次重申美方坚持一中政策。他表示，美国不支持台独政党，但外界注意到美方再次说一套做一套，近期又在台海挑事。6月3号，美国中云号驱逐舰、加拿大蒙特利尔号护卫舰过航台湾海峡，并公开炒作。
The most dangerous spot in the world, perhaps, is Taiwan right now. Is that not a change in policy?
The One China policy has succeeded in actually achieving the practical objective of decades of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. That's why our policy hasn't changed. That's why we believe the One China policy should continue to ensure.
So if the new DPP candidate takes some steps toward Taiwanese independence, you would oppose that?
We have been public in saying we do not support Taiwan independence.
美国有线电视新闻网评论认为，在中美关系经历了动荡和紧张的1年后，两国正在努力寻求彼此关系的正常化。中美高层近期互动频密，这或将为下一阶段中美其他交流提供契机和窗口。但需要指出的是，对话频次的上升并不等于实际关系的解冻。从双方在接触中的一系列表态看，显示出在许多核心问题上仍有较大分歧。接下来，中美关系能否重回正轨，要看双方能否解决经贸、安全、人文交流等领域现有的实质问题。
美方释放的信号是非常混乱的。那一方面，像沙利文、像财长耶伦，他们不断的释放，就是说想和中国进一步的磋商、进一步的接触的一个信号。但同时，我们也看到，美国就台湾问题，还有这个对华的制裁、南海问题等等这些核心的一些问题上，其实对中国的打压一刻也没有停止。如果想恢复后续的高层的一个交往，我觉得美方首先要做出改变和努力。
事实上，在对华关系中，美方说一套做一套的行为反差，其实是他对外战略的常态，也一定程度上是美国扭曲政治生态的表现。
因为从美国政治精英来讲，首先他既想通过这个对中国示强来捞取政治选票，来巩固国内的这样一个政治基础，也想通过对中国的打压来获取战略利益。还想呢保持中美关系不失控，所以说在这样一个多重的一个目标背景之下，所以说他处理对华关系就比较困难。